Hello and welcome to Luminar Coffee Break. I'm Angela Andrieux, and today is our Friday weekly wrap up. Now, typically I'm joined on Fridays with my co-host Vanelli, but he wasn't able to make it today. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the topics that we discussed earlier in the week and answer any questions that may have arisen since we originally presented them. So earlier this week, Vanelli talked about 3 simple steps to improve your photos. I'm going to give you 3 things that I like to look for when I edit, and how to create multiple versions of an image. And then the topics that I went through with you were how to cull your images and how to find the best photos in a series. And I also had special guest Darlene Hildebrand on my show. If you missed yesterday's episode with Darlene, I highly encourage you to go back and watch the recording. She did a phenomenal job at presenting how to control contrast in images. So you can always find that here on our Skylum Software YouTube channel. Just go to the Luminar Coffee Break playlist and look for yesterday's episode, How to Control Contrast with Luminar AI. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Hey Julie, so glad you're able to be here today. All right, so this is a really gorgeous image. I believe it was taken in Patagonia by one of our ambassadors. And there are 3 things that I like to look for when editing an image and how I can make it its best. The first is going to be contrast, the second is color, and the third is composition. So in looking at an image like this, let me go ahead and show you the before and after here. Here's the before, and then here's the after. And you can see that I did a few things to really pop the color, pop the contrast, and just make it come alive. So let me quickly run you through what I did. I'm going to go ahead and click on my image here, go to Adjustments, and revert to Original. And I'm going to start by going to a template, and I have several that are my favorites, and one of those, it's actually here in the scenery category if you go looking for it, but I have it marked under my favorites, and it's called Fast Fix. And it does a great job of giving me a better starting point for just about any image. From there, I'm going to look at the color, contrast, and composition. So first, let's take a look at the composition and see if we can improve it a little bit. I'm going to go to Composition AI and click on the Composition AI button to see what the AI recommends. Now, I think that is a better crop, but I think I can make it even better by adjusting it slightly, bringing it in so my subject here, this person walking along the path, is really intersected here at the rule of thirds. I'll hit return on my keyboard to go ahead and commit that crop. So now that we have our crop, let's take a look at some color and tone things. So Enhance AI, which our template already added a good amount of, that helps us with our tone and our color. So that's the contrast, the color, all of that was helped by this. So if I turn it off and turn it back on again, you can see what that particular setting did. Now I think that setting is already in a great place. So let's go ahead and work with our contrast a little bit more. There are a couple of places that you can go to look for this. The first one we can try is in the Light tool, and we have Smart Contrast, which is an AI-based contrast tool. It's a single slider, and you can improve contrast just by moving the slider around, and it affects the entire image. That is an improvement, but I think I want to have a little bit more control. So you can use Smart Contrast, but if you want to get a little bit more in depth, what I recommend is scrolling then down to Super Contrast. And this gives you the ability to control your highlights and control your contrast and your highlights, midtones, and shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up that highlights contrast, and you see what that's doing to the sky. It's bringing up a little bit more of the detail here in the clouds. I can adjust the balance to enhance that a little bit further. That looks really good. I might bring up our midtones contrast just a little bit, and you can throw the balance back and forth here to see if you like the effect. I'm going to keep that pretty much right in the middle. And then the shadows contrast is going to open up this foreground, and it's opening up that contrast in the foreground. And then we can dial it back or dial it up just to go ahead and make sure that it keeps a lot of contrast. Now, in making these contrast adjustments, let's go ahead and take a look at the before and the after. It's added a little bit more punch, but it's also punched up the color a little bit. So if you want to adjust that color, I recommend then going up to our color tool, and you can see that some adjustments here have already been done with that template that we applied. But in looking at this, I want to alter the color of the grass here a little bit and make it look a little bit more alive. And I also want to take the edge off of her magenta jacket there. It's just a little bit too bright. So first, let's look at the grasses. I'm going to start in the Hue tab, and a lot of these grasses are on the yellow side. I want to make them look a little bit more alive. So I'm going to take that yellow slider and actually move it up towards the green. You can see everything getting a little bit greener and looking a bit more plush. So that looks pretty good, but it is a little bit oversaturated now. So for that, I can go into my saturation tab and pull back a little bit on that saturation. I can also darken it with the luminance tab. Luminance is the lightness or darkness of various colors. So I can go to that green luminance and then darken that down a little bit so it looks a little bit more natural. So let's take a look at the before and the after. I think that's a really nice change. Now I think her jacket is still a little bit too bright, and I'm going to go to the saturation tab here. And since the jacket is a nice pink magenta, I can grab the magenta slider, and I'm just going to back off the saturation a bit on that magenta. It doesn't have any other magenta tones in the image, so it's only affecting that jacket, and it just takes the edge off of it. You can desaturate it more if you like, but I think that is a really good balance. So let me take a look here at the before and the after. I think we made some really great changes to this image, and by looking at 3 core things, and that is color, contrast, and composition. So hopefully those 3 things will help you improve just about any image. Now, when we talk about color, you can obviously go black and white, and that's the removal of color. So you have to judge where you want those colors to go, if you want them to be intense, or if you want to go monochrome. So those are the things that I recommend looking for in any image to make them better. So the next topic we covered was how to cull images in a series. So let me pop back over here to my catalog, and I'm going to go to this mom and daughter photo shoot. What we did when we started maybe it was Tuesday, is let's start with all photos, and you can see I have several of them marked here with hearts. Those are my favorites, or my picks. And then I have several here that are dark and kind of grayed out and are marked with an X. Now you can go through these images, you can arrow through with your cursor on your keyboard, and you can, on the ones that you want to mark as rejects that you don't think you're going to edit, that you possibly want to delete, possibly they're blurry, lots of other options, lots of reasons that you might want to mark them as rejects, you can hit the X key on your keyboard. And if you find ones that you love and you want to make sure those are part of the ones you edit, you can hit P on your keyboard to select it as a pick. So those are 2 of my favorite shortcuts for in the catalog module, that pick and reject option. So when I'm looking through a series of images, 3 things that I look for in this is going to be focus. If you're doing a photo shoot, you want to make sure that your subject's in focus. When you're photographing people, you want to make sure their expressions and their gestures are appropriate for the scene. So, sometimes as we go through a photo shoot, you might get an image where one person in the image has a beautiful smile, and the other person, maybe they were blinking and they turned awkwardly, or, let's take a look at this image right here. I mean, it's a really cute image. The daughter looks adorable. I'm going to guess that mom isn't going to like that photo, though. It's just kind of an awkward pose, an awkward moment captured. So that might be one that I would mark with an X and not process. Let me go back to my grid mode. I'm going to hit the G key on my keyboard, and you can go through a series and quickly mark which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to mark as rejects, and go through and find which ones are the best and the ones that you're going to process. Once you mark your favorites, you can go up here to this menu of showing and choose only your favorites. Once you do this, all of the ones that you've marked as favorites will only show. It hides everything else. All of your rejects and everything that's unmarked is hidden. It's still on your hard drive. They're not deleted. It just hides them temporarily. So now you can go through and focus on your best images to go ahead and edit them. Once you do that, you can start with one image and you can make your edits. And then once you've made those edits, which I've already done to this image, so let's take a look at our before. All right, come on. Maybe this one wasn't edited. Let me go back to my grid view here. And instead, I can filter this list by edited. There we go. And yep, that one is edited. So maybe try one other here, and we can take a look at our before and our after. And I'm not seeing much of a difference there. Give me just a moment. I'm not sure what's going on. It says it's edited, but it is not making a change. At any rate, that's a way that you can go through and filter through those images. And then once you've made edits, you can right-click on that image, go to your adjustments, copy those adjustments, and then paste them to the other images in the series. So if you have any questions about that, make sure you pop those into the chat or into the comments if you're watching this later. I'll do my best to answer them. But culling is a great way to go through Whether it's a travel shoot or you've done a portrait shoot, anytime you've been out and you've captured a lot of images, you need to go through them first to decide which ones you want to edit. You're going to get overwhelmed if you're trying to go through and edit everything in, 200 or 700 frame shoot. It just, after a few images, you get overwhelmed. So it's a really good thing before you start editing to whittle that down and pick only your best to shoot. So hopefully some of these techniques help. The last topic we had this week was Vanelli talked about how to create multiple copies of an image. So let me switch over to another image here. I have Vanelli's image of a flower that he shot out front of his front door, and it's a really beautiful macro shot. Let me show you the original here. I'm going to zoom back out, and there's the original. This is his process copy. And what if I wanted to have another copy that was black and white? Well, right now in Luminar AI, we don't have a way to have virtual copies, but what you can do is here in the catalog, I can right click on this image, click on Show in Finder, and that's going to pull it up on my hard drive. And I can then right click on it here and click Duplicate, and then I will end up with 2 copies of this image on my hard drive. I can then add in this other image here. I'm going to go ahead and add image and grab that copy, and now I have 2 copies of this flower. So let me go back here into my catalog, scroll up here to my single image edits. Now you see I have 2 instances. I have the color version and I have the black and white version. So that is the quickest and easiest way at this time to have multiple versions of an image, is just right click, go into Finder or Explorer if you're on Windows, and duplicate that image and then come back and bring that one into Luminar AI. And that'll allow you to explore some different possibilities and see what look or several looks work best for a given image. I want to say hello to Darlene, good to see you, and 78 Degrees Films, glad to have you here today. Happy that you found it helpful talking about culling images. So the last topic we had this week was actually Darlene, who I see is in the chat, and she talked about contrast. Now, I'm not going to go back and rehash her episode. She did too great of a job of it for me to go ahead and redo it for her. So I encourage you to pop back to yesterday's episode. You can find it on the Skylum Software YouTube channel under the Luminar Coffee Break playlist. So definitely go back and explore that. It's a great episode, and I highly recommend watching it. With that, I'm going to wish you guys a wonderful Friday. Have a great weekend. Hope you get out there and take some pictures, and we will see you again next week. Bye, everyone.